Welcome everyone to another deep dive.
Great to be here.
So today we're plunging into, well, this really fascinating, very intimate world of an Argentine jazz duo. They're called El Sosias. And our mission really is to try and unpack what makes these twin brothers just so special, from their unique sound to what seems like a pretty radical approach to how they perform, how they create. It's quite a story.
It really is. And we've got, a good amount to draw on here, some articles, research, our notes, obviously, and this really illuminating essay they wrote called, "And What If Everything Starts with a Melody?"
Oh, interesting title.
Yeah, and all of this helps us get a handle on their specific sound, this really profound idea they have about improvisation and, how they genuinely live and breathe jazz from Mendoza down in Argentina.
Okay, so let's paint the picture. Who are these musicians exactly?
Right. So we're talking about twin brothers. There's Rodolfo Tornello. He plays tenor saxophone and clarinet. And his brother, Osvaldo Tornello, on piano. And they've been playing together, as this duo since about 2002, give or take.
Got it. And a quick note for you listening, their last name, it's pronounced Tornello, just so you know.
Good point. And their name, El Sosias, that's pronounced Sosias. The stress is on that I.
Ah, okay. Sosias.
Exactly. Though, interestingly, they often write it without the accent mark, the tilde, apparently for, aesthetic reasons, which is kind of a neat little detail.
Yeah, it is.
But the name itself, El Sosias, it's really rich, isn't it? It nods to, a literary idea of a double or a doppelganger.
Right, which fits perfectly because they're twins.
Exactly. It reflects their physical resemblance, obviously, but also, I think, this duality in their music, how they're similar but also distinct voices that, complement each other perfectly.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, they call their music progressive jazz. And when I first heard that, my mind kind of jumped to
70s fusion, jazz, rock.
Yeah, exactly. That whole scene. So how is their idea of progressive different? Because that seems really key to getting their sound.
It's a really vital distinction, actually. For El Sosias, progressive isn't about that specific genre sound. It's more an attitude.
An attitude, okay.
Yeah, like a constant forward motion, a transformation of melodies. They explore, they improvise. They might blend traditional jazz standards with bits of Argentine folklore.
Oh, interesting.
But it's always rooted in that dialogue between them. It's about constantly evolving from whatever melody they start with, always pushing it, transforming it.
That constant transformation. I like that idea. And, to really grasp where they're coming from, we apparently need to talk about their mentor, Pablo Kuselman.
Oh, absolutely. Crucial figure.
He sounds like he was hugely important for them.
Totally key. Kuselman was a saxophonist, but also a really important teacher, a pedagogue in Mendoza. He founded this place called Feniac, which became a major music center there. And Rodolfo, the sax player, was actually his very first saxophone student. Osvaldo joined later on piano.
Wow.
And Kuselman, well, he gave them this profoundly human way of looking at music. He really emphasized things like, affection, deep listening, being gentle, but also demanding.
Gentle but demanding. I like that.
Yeah. And crucially, this idea of music as a conversation. That was fundamental. It's like this ethical and musical blueprint that just deeply, deeply shaped El Sosias.
Music as a conversation, it really makes you think, doesn't it, about how often we talk at each other instead of really listening.
Exactly.
And it feels like these brothers, they've made that deep back and forth listening the absolute core of their art. And this whole idea of authenticity, of dialogue, it seems to lead us straight into one of their most, striking projects, Sábados Vivos. What exactly is that?
Yeah, Sábados Vivos, it's basically radical intimacy. Picture this. Weekly concerts broadcast live right from their own living room.
Their living room. Seriously?
And get this, using only a mobile phone.
Wow. Okay, so this isn't because they, lack fancy equipment?
Not at all. It's a completely deliberate aesthetic choice. It's like a declaration of total honesty, that feeling of maybe precariousness. That's exactly the point. They want to present the unedited thing, every potential mistake, every moment of hesitation. It's all just there, heard. They turn their home space into the stage.
So it's like they're completely stripping away the artifice. Forget the velvet ropes, the stage lights. Just come on in. Here we are making music.
Pretty much.
It feels almost like a challenge to the whole established music industry model, doesn't it?
You could definitely see it that way.
It embraces a certain vulnerability, right? Which makes me wonder, how do they handle that? The potential for people to think it's, I don't know, amateurish because it's so raw and not polished in that traditional way.
Yeah, that's the interesting tension.
Mm.
And while maybe some might see a risk there, the thing is, their musical quality, their musicianship, and the clarity of their concept, it completely sustains it.
Ah.
It's not just a casual jam session you happen to overhear. It's a profound statement, really, that genuine art can actually thrive because of its raw intimacy, not just in spite of it.
Right.
It's like vulnerability becomes this powerful aesthetic. It redefines what performance even means. And hey, for you listeners who are curious, you can actually catch these shows live every Saturday, 12 p.m. Argentina time on Instagram Live.
That's really something. A bold choice. And this raw, honest thing seems to connect directly to another core idea from their writing. Everything starts with a melody.
Mm-hmm.
What do they really mean by melody there? Is it just like the main tune you hum or something bigger?
It's definitely bigger. For them, the melody is, well, much more than just the theme. They call it a portal.
A portal.
Yeah, like it's the emotional heart, the structural core. Everything they do in their improvisation, in their dialogue, it grows out of that initial melody. It's the seed, the primary source for their whole musical conversation.
Okay, so the melody isn't just a tune. It's almost like the music's DNA, like a whole universe waiting inside it.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
It really makes you reconsider something seemingly simple, how profound it can be. And that leads perfectly into how they think about improvisation. They call it epistemic improvisation.
That's the term, yeah.
Epistemic. And it's explicitly not about, how fast you can play or how many notes you cram in. So what does epistemic actually mean in their world? And what does that invite us, the listener, into?
Well, fundamentally, it means thinking while you play.
Thinking while you play.
Okay, so as a listener, you're not just hearing a finished product, a perfectly polished thing. You're actually experiencing the discovery as it happens. It's like you're witnessing this unfolding exploration live.
Right.
It's a genuine conversation again between the piano and the sax. They talk about it as a dialogic unit, or sometimes an imperfect symmetry, these two distinct voices creating something together right there in the moment.
So it's less about perfection and more about the process, inviting us into the actual act of musical thinking.
Exactly. It's like a shared journey in sound.
Yeah.
Almost like generating musical knowledge live right in front of you.
That's fascinating. And it sounds like this whole philosophy, it's not just in their performances, right? It extends to how they teach, too. You mentioned workshops like Música para Imaginar Futuros and their virtual space, Tornaland.
That's absolutely right. Their teaching is also rooted in that same accessible listening, the same spirit of exploration. And really, through everything, performing, teaching, writing, their core values, just shine through so clearly. This idea of art as an act of hospitality. I mean, they literally invite you into their home virtually every week.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And this sort of defense of the artisanal, the handcrafted against mass production. A deep appreciation for just being present in the moment.
Yeah.
And that almost radical honesty we talked about.
Yeah.
They really do create from what you might call the periphery, but they forge their own unique center, playing by their own rules. It's quite inspiring, actually.
Definitely. So thinking about everything we've covered, what are some key takeaways for us from this deep dive into El Sosias?
Well, I think one big thing is how intimacy, real intimacy, can be such a potent artistic force. It's not a weakness, it's a strength.
Right, and how improvising doesn't have to be just showing off chops. It can be this shared act of thinking, of discovery.
Exactly.
Okay.
And just a reminder that music can genuinely be an act of hospitality, of presence, connecting with people directly.
Yeah. Maybe a final thought to leave people with. Perhaps it's that image of the domestic setting, their living room. Not seeing it as a limitation, but as this space for, like you said, radical truth in art.
That's a powerful idea. Or maybe even just going back to that simple, almost deceptively simple question from their essay. And what if everything starts with a melody? It seems so basic, but when you really sit with it like they clearly have, it just opens up entire worlds, doesn't it, about how music, and maybe even how ideas themselves actually come into being.
A lot to think about there. Really fascinating stuff.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking a closer look at Buy Me a Coffee. It's a platform that seems to be really shaking things up for independent creators and how they connect with their audience.
That's right. And our mission here, isn't just to explain the nuts and bolts of how it works. We really want to unpack why such a seemingly simple idea has pretty significant implications.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack this then. The sources call it a simple and secure platform for direct support. So what's this whole little coffee thing actually about? Why is it clicking with people?
Well, at its heart, It's basically a digital way for you, the listener, to show appreciation. Think of it like symbolically treating a creator to a coffee for something they made that you enjoyed.
Right.
And the process itself is incredibly simple. You just visit the creator's page. The source mentions one, like buymeacoffee.com for a Jira's Sosias, for example.
Right.
Then you choose how many coffees you'd like to offer. Each one is usually just, a few dollars.
A small amount.
Exactly. Then there's an option to leave a little message if you want. And finally, you make a quick, secure payment, card or PayPal, usually pretty easy.
Sounds very straightforward.
Mm.
But what makes this different, compared to something like Patreon or a monthly subscription?
Yeah, that's a really important point. The material we looked at stresses that it's not a subscription. There's no ongoing commitment.
Ah,
It's described more as a free and voluntary gesture, kind of like passing the hat digitally after a concert. It's spontaneous.
I like that analogy. So no strings attached.
Precisely. And that actually makes it easier for international support, too. Sometimes small one-off payments across borders can be tricky, with fees and stuff. This often simplifies that.
That makes sense. So it's more about these spontaneous moments of appreciation. How does that actually help the creators? Do these small one-off coffees really add up?
Oh, absolutely. The sources are clear. This kind of support helps a lot. It helps them keep going, continue recording, playing, editing, sharing their work.
Right. The practical side.
Yeah, practical, but also it's crucial for creators maybe in other countries where even a little support goes a longer way, or where other funding options are, less accessible.
So it's financial fuel, but it
Yeah.
sounds like there's maybe more to it, like a psychological boost.
Definitely. You hit on something important there. The creators themselves say things like, every coffee counts, every gesture adds up, it's personal.
Mm-hmm.
One source puts it very movingly. Your support means much more than you imagine. They remind us, we are not a big production. Often it's just like two musicians at home working with what we have. They talk about the time, dedication, and a lot of passion that goes into every single note, every video.
So when you buy that coffee, you're not just giving a few bucks. You're kind of saying, I see the effort, keep going.
Exactly. You're providing validation. It's a direct signal that their work, their passion actually connected with someone.
And connecting that back to you, the listener, the message from creators is quite direct, isn't it? Something like, if our melodies accompanied you or moved you, inviting a little coffee is a concrete way to say keep going.
Yeah, it's pitched as fast, direct, and something that genuinely gives them strength to keep making sincere music. It lowers the barrier for showing appreciation.
So wrapping up our deep dive on Buy Me a Coffee, it really seems to boil down to this simple yet powerful idea of direct voluntary support, a no-strings-attached way for you to directly back the creators you appreciate.
It really does. And, it leaves us with a pretty interesting question to think about. In this digital age, just flooded with content, how might this specific model, direct, non-committal, sort of spontaneous support, how might that deepen the actual connection between creators and you, their audience? And what does that really imply for the future, for the sustainability of independent art?
Mm-hmm.